Do you know that you are in a spiritual war as a born-again Christian? And are you aware of the enemy you're fighting? My name is Ernest Wamboye, and you're watching CITAM, Church Online. The Bible says this in Ephesians chapter 6 verse 12. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. Paul the Apostle is writing to the Ephesian church to let them know that as the gospel is being preached, there is a war that is being fought. And this war is not against flesh and blood. This war is not against people. We are not fighting human beings. Paul is saying that there are spiritual forces behind the systems of this world. And we looked last week at some of those, at that particular force, and which the Bible calls as demons and unclean spirits. Now in Ephesians chapter 6 verse 12, Paul tells us what these evil forces are in specific detail. He says that our fight is not just against flesh and blood, and then he goes on to list 4 categories of evil spirits in this section. And we're going to look at these 4 categories and see what evil spirits are and what they do. And so he begins by saying that our fight is not against principalities. Other versions use the word rulers. Now, the Greek word there for principalities is the word archas. What does archas mean? Archas literally means in the Greek, those who come first. The English rendering of this language does not give us a very clear meaning of what they are, but the original Greek language tells us those who come first. And it is believed that these are demonic spirits that are on the forefront in the spiritual war. Those that deceive you, those that entice you, those that lure you into sin. And we've been told that that's one level of the spiritual host of this war that we're fighting, of the enemy we're fighting. And then Paul goes on to say, level 2, we are fighting against powers. Other versions render that as authorities. Now what is that? Now this is different from the principalities. The principalities are those who come first. It seems as if these are demons that seem to entice you, to lure you, to deceive you. But the second level, the powers and the authorities, the Greek word there is exousias. E-X-O-U-I-U-S-I-A-S, exousias. Now exousias here literally means demons with competence, mastery, and delegated influence. Now this is a second level of evil spirits, that they are not just those that entice and come first, that these particular demons have competence, they have mastery, they've got delegated influence over a certain area, they've perfected a certain art. And many a times you saw Jesus speak to certain demons in the New Testament and call them by specific names. He called them a demon of infirmity, a spirit of infirmity, a spirit of blindness, a spirit of muteness. And you realize that these are specific spirits that have mastered certain sins, and they've got mastery and they've got delegated influence. I believe these are those kinds of spirits that hold men and women down in addictions during the spiritual war. They are those evil spirits that hold men and women in the trap of idolatry and addictions so that men and women cannot be free. And so what do? They enslave, they addict, and consequently they open spirits, they open doors to other spirits. And then the third category that Paul gives us in Ephesians 6 verse 12, he says we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, we wrestle against principalities, powers. Number 3, he says we wrestle against rulers of this present darkness. Other versions render it as powers of this dark world, cosmic powers. What is the Greek language there? The Greek language there is kosmokratoras. Kosmokratoras. And kosmokratoras, as used in the Greek, literally means world rulers, demons with geographical mandate over the nations of men. Now, what kinds of demons are these? If you read the book of Daniel chapter 10, we are told that Daniel prayed and the answer was coming from heaven through the angel Gabriel. However, the answer was delayed. When Gabriel finally brought the answer, he told Daniel, your answer for your prayer has been delayed for 21 days. Why? Because as I was coming here, I had to face a demonic entity, and he called it the Prince of Persia. And he said that there was a certain ruler over a certain nation, the Persian nation at that time, and this Prince of Persia resisted the angel Gabriel from bringing the report back to Daniel. These are what we're talking about, the world rulers, the powers of this present darkness, the cosmocratoras. And then Gabriel told Daniel that he must go back, and when he goes back, he will face the prince of Greece. Again, we're told that Greece at that time had a cosmocratoras, a world ruler, a demon with a geographical mandate over that nation. And we're told that Michael came to help Gabriel so that Gabriel was freed up. Now, what is the mission of this particular rank of demons? Their work is to interfere with the affairs of men, to interfere with the politics of men, and ultimately to establish Satan's kingdom in each geographical nation. And the ultimate beyond that is to bring about the Antichrist. You must ask yourself, when you hear that certain regions have got certain repetitive sinful patterns, what is going on there? The Bible could actually refer to this when it says cosmocratoras, world rulers, powers of this present age, powers of rulers of this present darkness. That there are certain demons that have got certain mandates over certain geographical regions. When you hear that certain regions of the country are struggling with alcoholism, it wouldn't be a wonder to understand that there may be a cosmocratoras over that region. That certain regions are constantly struggling with war, with suicide. You must understand that the demonic strongholds of that nation could mean that they have power over that area. They are rulers of this present darkness. And finally, the fourth level is spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. Spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. Other versions render it as forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Now, who are these? These in the Greek language are called pneumatica. Pneumatica. What are they? They are ethereal celestial spirits that dwell above the sky. And I believe that these are the false gods of religion. Their work is to oppose the gospel. Their work is to present other religions as equal opportunities to reach the Lord, and that is not true. They are deceptive. They are demons that manifest as gods of men, and yet they do not have that kind of power. They are demons that manifest themselves, trying to make themselves equal with God, and yet they are not that. They are spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. Their work is to oppose the gospel, to make us think that all religions are the same, to make us think that Hinduism and Islam and Mormonism and all these false gods from these religions are the one true God. And yet they are not. They are deceptions. Their work is to counter the gospel. And that is why any preacher who does not preach the gospel, any preacher who does not perpetrate the gospel of Jesus Christ or speaks another gospel is actually in line with the work of these entities, this pneumatica. These evil forces are organized and their work is to bring down the believer. But again, thanks be to God that Jesus Christ has overcome all these evil ranks of Satan. And in the spiritual war, we have overcome the archers, the tempters, the exousias, the masters, the cosmocratoras, the world rulers, and the pneumatica, the celestial spirits that dwell above the sky. And Paul tells us confidently, we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the principalities, powers, rulers of this present darkness, spiritual hosts of wickedness, but we can overcome them. How can we overcome them? We can overcome them by putting on a special armor called the full armor of God. And we'll look at that full armor next week in our final video on this series, Spiritual Warfare. Thank you so much for watching. If this video has blessed you, leave a like, leave a comment, share it with your friends and family, and we'll conclude next week with the final episode by looking at the full armor of God to stand firm in this spiritual war. My name is Ernest Wamboye, and you're watching CITAM Church Online.